watching The Story of Oceanos. I have no idea what's happening, but I be living in the sea. So let's check it out, BB. I love Bossa Nova! That's what I was doing. Oh my god, I always fug up a buffet. It's because I like to pick 100 little things, and I love making a breakfast charcuterie board. Aw, everybody's having so much fun. Is this what it's like to leave the house? Oh!
You just gotta drive it.
Off the coast of South Africa today, a dramatic and daring rescue at sea.
What?
Merchant vessels joined South Africa's Navy and Air Force to rescue the passengers and crew of a Greek cruise ship sinking in storm-lashed waters.
I have never been on a cruise, and I never hear anything nice about a cruise. I always hear doo-doo poo-poo cruise, which we watched a video about, cruise exploding, cruise hitting an iceberg. Has there ever been a nice cruise?
All but about 20 of the 580 people who were aboard the vessel have now been accounted for. But as Richard Sergey reports, disturbing questions remain about how the ship got in trouble and how its crew responded to the emergency.
What's up, guys? My name is Jake. On the evening of August 3rd, 1991, the
Hopefully he's from State Farm, because it looks like this cruise boat needed some insurance.
cruise ship the Oceanos began taking on water with over 500 people on board.
Oh
and a
my
crew
God.
that had already abandoned ship. Today I wanted to tell the remarkable story that you probably haven't heard of, from one of the most impressive maritime rescues ever conducted, and the ultimate sinking of the modern day cruise line.
Oh my god. Okay. I want to know morally where you stand. If the boat starts sinking, do you take all you can? I'm taking everything that looks like it's priced over $1,000.
This is the story of the sinking of the Oceanos. So the MTS Oceanos was a European passenger vessel built in 1952 under a different name. The ship went through many different owners throughout the years, and finally ended up with the Eperatiki lines.
It looks a little old. I don't know. Maybe this should be in like Power Wash Simulator or something. I don't know how to explain it. It needs a little bit of pizzazz. Maybe like a big, beautiful anime girl on the side. That would help.
A Greek shipping company founded in the mid-1800s. They took advantage of the growing cruise market in the 1970s and acquired the Oceanos. The company actually became the largest cruise line in the Eastern Mediterranean and Greece, acquiring all types of older passenger vessels.
How much does it take to start, I guess, owning a cruise ship? Like, you have to buy the ship. You have to buy people to work on the ship. You have to buy all of the food that goes on the ship. So you're basically running a mini restaurant. This just doesn't seem like a good investment. I'd probably be like pulling my hair out. I don't know.
See, back then, the cruise industry was very different than how it operates today.
Anytime I see it like strung up like that with the flags, I just think of like Call of Duty map.
Many of the up-and-coming cruise lines didn't have
map.
the capital or saw it as too much of a risk to build new vessels specifically for the line. So many companies had just purchased older ships, usually built in the 1950s and 60s, and refitted them for regular cruises. The Oceanos was no exception to this, making regular cruises out of South Africa by the late 80s and 90s.
So is there like a little boat that goes ahead of the big boat, and they like patched it since the Titanic? So they like scout ahead, and then they tell the big boat if they can go somewhere? No, sometimes? Well, they should patch that.
The ship was only around 14,000 tons and able to hold a maximum of 550 passengers and 250 crew. She featured a dining room, several lounges and bars, a casino, and an open sun deck with swimming pool.
Damn, wait, they got a casino. I did watch a video on TikTok about people who work on the cruise ships, and apparently you have to work like every day, and you have to work the entire time that it's open. So it's kind of insane that they expect you to have so many hours, and you really don't get any days off, because people will see you walking around, and of course they're going to ask you questions because they're used to you working there anyway.
Not exactly a large ship at all by today's standards, but at the time, that wasn't all that uncommon. The largest cruise ship in the world was Royal Caribbean's Monarch of the Seas at
Oh, Dark Souls is at 7.
Wasn't all that uncommon. The largest cruise ship in the world was Royal Caribbean's Monarch of the Seas at 73,000 tons, which compared to other ships carrying passengers for pleasure cruises, including the Oceanos, it
What's a pleasure cruise? Is that where the pineapple enjoyers go?
was pretty enormous. While the Oceanos was still owned by the Epirotiki Lines, the vessel was being chartered on an 8-month contract by a company called TFC Tours.
Okay.
They were essentially just leasing the vessel for their own routine cruises
TFC stands for Terrific Cruise. By the way, just want to inform you.
out of the relatively untapped South African cruise market. However, there is a good reason for that specific market not being very utilized, as those waters are notoriously treacherous. However, in late July of 1991, the Oceanos was set to start her 7-night voyage from Durban, South Africa, to Cape Town, South Africa, then back. Around a 1,000-mile journey with 2 ports of call along the way. At the helm of the vessel was Captain Yanis Ivranis, an officer of 20 years and the man in charge of delivering the vacationing passengers safely to port. Though, while the ship was seaworthy, TFC Tours had let the Oceanos fall under harsh decay.
I told you it looked like crap! I know! I'm bougie.
When passengers arrived to port, they described the
Look, it's got doo-doo all up on the front!
vessel as looking rusted and not very well maintained. On August 3rd, 1991, the vessel was nearing the end of its 7-day cruise with its last stop in East London, South Africa. The vessel took on more passengers for a single-night cruise as the Oceanos was beginning to complete the last leg of their journey back to Durban. Though that afternoon, the winds began to pick up, and the ocean just offshore began whipping up a strong gale.
Are they allowed to stop, or do they have to just, like, keep going no matter what? Because if I saw, like, a tsunami, just turn around. Or just pause and I'll go gamble in the casino. We don't gotta keep going. They have brakes and anchors? Oh, I forgot.
Like I had
I thought they would just have to like back it up. Beep, beep, beep.
mentioned earlier, this part of Africa is well known for its weather. The ship was scheduled to travel through the Transeski coastline, nicknamed the Wild Coast for its freak and sometimes violent weather. This ended up delaying the Oceanos for a few hours that afternoon, and as winds continued to pick up, the vessel just couldn't leave port.
Oh my god, I was trying to enjoy my lunch and now it's all wet.
However, by the command of Captain Avranis, the Oceanos headed out to sea despite the weather to keep schedule, now with 571 people on board. Usually a sail-away party would be held on deck, however due to the weather, a party was held inside the main lounge.
Okay.
Ross Hills, a guitarist on board, said, quote, "It was a great success in spite of the weather. We got passengers to dance and sing, telling them that we would provide the rock and the ship would provide the roll."
Ooh, wait, that goes hard. And the worst part about getting people to dance in like a event is that one person has to be shameless first. And I did that at Off-Kai. I went out at Off-Kai and I started shaking my shit, okay? I knew that I had to be the first person out there. And I don't care if I look stupid because I'm like 2 margaritas in. Actually, no, I didn't have a margarita. I had a cranberry vodka. But when I told her to make it, she said, "What's a cranberry vodka?" And I said, "Huh?" Then she just started like making a potion and threw like 20 gummy bears in it.
As dusk approaches that evening, passengers made their way to the main dining room. However, by now, the Oceanos was encountering very rough 40-knot winds and up to 30-foot swells. Passengers described the scene inside the main dining room as a tad chaotic.
Oh my god! I would have just LARPed and said that it was like a ghost. Welcome to the haunted cruise. Casper will be dining with you this evening.
With plates and glasses shifting around their tables, and staff struggling to keep balance. The swells outside were tossing the 500-foot vessel side to side, seemingly becoming even more violent. Meanwhile, below deck, in the bulkheads, the scene unfolding would instantly change the fate of the Oceanos. Earlier that day, repairs had been performed on the ship's water disposal system. A very important pipe that directly intakes seawater within the vessel had
Could you get Delta P there? That looks like Delta P territory.
its vital non-return valve not fully replaced. It's believed that after a series of freak waves slamming against the ship, the pipe's shell plating had burst open, spilling seawater, and began filling the compartment.
We're gonna need a really big bucket. Does anybody want to help me?
Eventually, that water, going unnoticed, had reached the ship's main propulsion engines and caused an explosion. The Oceanos immediately lost power and propulsion from her two main propellers. Upstairs in the main lounge, performers had been entertaining passengers just as the main engine exploded.
Dude, anytime there's a bad thing going on in a ship, the entertainers are always Giga Chads. They keep everybody, like, I guess, preoccupied with something else. They get everybody's minds off of it, and they never give up the performance. Entertainer W every time.
A guest had actually been videotaping the show at the same moment the Oceanos lost power, and you can hear the loud thud in the video from below deck.
I want you to imagine, if you can, a long and
Immediately, cruise director Lorraine Betts rushed upstairs to find out what was happening from the ship's officers. By now, Captain Avranus had assessed the damage below and knew the 14,000-ton powerless vessel was in trouble.
They should have emergency sails. Okay, that would probably do nothing. This is a big boat for one, like, I don't know, one-piece sail.
Room for 594 people in her 6 lifeboats, the Oceanos certainly had enough room to save everyone on board. However, with the rough ocean and the vessel beginning to ever so slightly list,
Okay, it's sinking, not going off course. Well, what they could do instead is maybe flex tape, or they could use Yo Mama's underwear.
time was at the essence. When Lorraine got to the bridge, Captain Avranus was described to be in shock, as the crew and officers were in a panic, sending out distress calls. As passengers waited patiently in the dark lounge, terrified
I'd be
as
scared.
to what happened.
I'm actually afraid of the dark. You know what? I'm big enough to admit it. I'm afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of thunderstorms because they're basically just like QTEs. And I'm afraid of failure.
Moss Hills and a few other entertainers had continued to sing songs and interact with the passengers, an effort to keep everyone calm. Not too long after, the ship's lifeboats were beginning to be lowered for boarding. However, not by passengers, but by crew. In fact, passengers and entertainment staff were told that there was just a problem in the engine room, and that there may be a chance they would need to abandon ship. So as passengers put on their life vests, the crew were seen running to and from their cabins, throwing personal items and suitcases in the lifeboats just before lowering away, which
What? They said, I gotta save my Xbox.
had very few actual passengers aboard. The captain assured everyone that the ship was not sinking, so Moss Hills and fellow entertainer Julian Butler traveled down below decks to find out for themselves. And what they found was alarming. Water had been pouring in and sloshing around on the lower decks. By this time, over 500 passengers were on board the Oceanos, and still no alarm or announcement had been sounded to abandon ship.
Dude, they're like, one, saving their own belongings, and two, they just don't want to admit they messed up, or maybe they just don't want to cause a panic, but like, you gotta say something eventually. Maybe just tell the band to incorporate it in the lyrics. We're going down. I'm not kidding. We're going down.
By midnight, the vessel was in serious trouble, and with hundreds of passengers awaiting some official to direct them as to what to do to evacuate, no such person appeared. It eventually came to the ship's entertainment staff to take charge of the rescue and group passengers and place them in lifeboats.
What did I say? They are insane. Holy crap, W entertainers.
So one by one, each lifeboat filled with at least a capacity of 99 passengers were lowered down into the rough, pitch-black ocean. By the early morning hours of August 4th, hundreds of passengers had been lowered down on several different lifeboats until a serious problem came. By this time, the Oceanos had been listing so heavily on its starboard side that launching or loading lifeboats became impossible. Since the crew had taken off with nearly half-empty boats, there was not enough seats in the remaining boats for everyone.
Oh my God. Guys, I've been working out at the gym. I've been working on my thighs. I could maybe have 3 chatters sit on my lap, but after that, I might be done. Okay? I'll try my best.
And now, with over 220 people still aboard the slowly sinking vessel, there was nothing to do but call for help. Moss Hills and Julian Butler had made their way up to the ship's bridge to assess the situation with the captain. The only problem was, the captain wasn't there. He was actually still on the ship, seen here grasping to the pool deck staircase, completely uninvolved. Actually, the only reason he
Every time we watch a video about a ship going down, it's always Captain L. What is going on? Captain Crunch would do a better job.
He was still on the ship was because he was caught boarding a lifeboat earlier, and the entertainment staff had pulled him back on board.
What?
In fact, almost all of the officers had escaped, and the two entertainers found the cruise ship's bridge deserted. So it became entirely
Wow.
up to them to basically save everyone on board by making distress calls to whoever would answer. Luckily, they were able to reach several ships in the area, and later learned that the South African Air Force set up a multi-helicopter rescue. By 6
cool.
a.m., all of the passengers were moved out onto the open decks, awaiting for the helicopter rescue. And after around 4 hours of waiting in complete darkness, the choppers finally came, efficiently running 2 different airlifts simultaneously,
Oh my God.
each carrying around 20 passengers. Once they were full, they would fly the 3 miles back to shore where they would unload and refuel at the staging area. They would then
Reloading.
fly back and repeat. And over the course of a few hours,
Oh my God. I know my luck would be that I would have to be attached to somebody I actually hate. And then we would just have to be hugging each other, like just straight up nuts to butts in the air. Oh, hell no.
unbelievably, every single person was off the Oceanos and had been successfully rescued via helicopter and inflatable boat.
Yay! Now this video is not an insensitive reaction. Yay!
All 571 people. And after what seemed like just moments, the listing of the sinking ship worsened as waves washed over the starboard bow. Then it didn't take long for the flooding to accelerate.
Oh no.
Soon,
Never trust the flood.
and incredibly all captured on
scary.
video, the 500-foot, 7-story vessel became swallowed by the ocean. Then finally, at around 3:30 p.m. on August 4th, nearly 19 hours after the flooding began, the Oceanos finally went
Bye-bye.
under. At the staging
Bye-bye.
ground on the shores of South Africa, passengers were reunited and the entertainment staff were regarded as heroes.
Oh my God, we should knight them. Do people still do that?
Which they were. As for Captain Arvranas, actually, he was one of the first to be airlifted off the sinking ship.
Boo! Boo! Boo him! Throw tomatoes! Boo! And your jacket's ugly! Boo!
And later on the ground, well, he had this to say.
When I order abandon the ship, doesn't matter what time I leave.
What?
Abandon is for everybody. If some
Me when I leave a birthday party, the first person. Oh yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, we're all gonna leave eventually. Happy birthday type shit. Bye.
people they like to stay, they can stay.
His reasoning was that
If they want to stay, they can stay. Hello? Yeah, you know what? I want more dad lore, so I'm just gonna stay on the ship as long as possible so I can tell my kids that I was like the last person to leave.
he would be better suited to coordinate the rescue from the shore. Remind you of anyone? The captain was actually defended by the cruise line, saying passengers misunderstood the crew procedures, saying, quote, "As regards to the captain abandoning the vessel, this is untrue, and he has maintained his position throughout in assisting the rescue in the most effective way."
What?
You know, looking over the footage again,
what?
it looks like he was an integral part of the rescue.
Yeah, like he was over there brainstorming the whole operation. Like he just was trying to help, but more from like the thinking side, not the like helping people and taking them off the ship and then also telling other people what to do. He was the brains of the operation.
Oh wait, no, he's actually just standing there lifeless. Thankfully, Greek Board of Inquiry found Captain Arvranas and 4 other officers guilty, though there are conflicting stories as to what actually happened to him. Anyways, as for Epirotiki lines,
You can bring your car on a ship? Or maybe that was Lightning McQueen. He just wants to enjoy a vacation too.
well, they were merged with another shipping company and had gone bankrupt in the early 2000s. Now looking at all of it as a whole, the actual cause of the sinking was honestly one of the best possible scenarios.
Okay.
Since the rate of water entering the vessel was very minimal. If the leak had been more severe and the Oceanos only had a few hours afloat, in the middle of the night during a harsh storm, the end result could have been much more catastrophic.
Also, W helicopters, because they actually got there in a good amount of time. There's so many things we've watched where the rescue takes so long that so many people lose their lives, but they were really quick.
But this maritime miracle has always fascinated me. The incredible images of a somewhat modern cruise ship sinking into the ocean and not a single life was lost is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
And now looking into it further, it's hard to even believe the astonishing task these entertainers and rescue crews were faced with. Having the lives of hundreds of
most informative and highest energy reaction. Yeah, true. Yep.
Scared passengers aboard a sinking ship during a storm, all in their hands.
True.
But thanks to the selfless individuals of the people coordinating and performing the air rescue, the actual crew, staff, and passengers aboard the Oceanos,
Oh my god, they're doing some climbing the wall, winter is coming type shit.
as well as the ships in the area coming to the aid, the story of the Oceanos remains to be one of the most incredible rescue
looks scary.
operations at sea.
Yay!
I'd like to thank NordVPN for sponsoring this video.
W
They've been a continued supporter
NordVPN. I use you to play Uma in Japan because you can't play Global Uma in Japan.
of the channel with a fantastic service I use every day. You can sign up with the link nordvpn.com/BSF to receive their tremendous offer of 75% off a 3-year plan.
I really like this guy's video. Like, he was really informative. It was good pacing. And he also had like a bunch of details and he gave his opinion, but he wasn't like crazy about his opinion, so you could make your own.
Plus, with the code BSF, you could obtain 1 extra month for free. NordVPN not only secures my internet browsing and privacy across 6 different devices.
You should watch his video about Nickelodeon Studios. I wanted to go to Nickelodeon Studios when I was a kid. Is that the one that was in, I think it was at Universal, and you could go and then they would put you on the show and then they would slime you. I remember I wanted to do that when I was a kid, but that was before I knew what was really going on, okay? Yeah, I didn't know about all the feet stuff. I was a child.
But they also have fantastic 24/7 customer service. And now with all the holiday traveling I do, using unknown Wi-Fi sources in foreign locations never worries me, knowing that I'm protected with military-grade encryption. If you haven't yet, please go use my link nordvpn.com/BSF to
Use his
protect
link.
your online presence. By doing that, you'll be helping videos like this out. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Oh, I like his outro. Thanks for watching the video. If you're new here, please come to the Twitch stream. And use code Berry for 10% off your gamers. That's all. Super. Have a great evening. Goodbye, YouTube. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.